Welcome back. And we're continuing our really timely conversation, as always, with Kevin Freeman, the host of Economic War Room with Kevin Freeman. You were describing some problems here at home. I want to turn a bit more to the enemy outside the United States of greatest concern, namely the Chinese Communist Party. For decades, Kevin, as you know, we have been encouraged to engage with China. The basic premise being that if we made them rich, they'd be more like us and more benign, and everybody would get along and everybody would make money and so on. It hasn't worked out that way. And we've seen a growing interest, rightly so, in disengaging from China, especially to the extent we are continuing to support them, it's making them a more dangerous adversary. Talk a little bit about what steps the Chinese Communist Party is taking to make it more difficult for us to disengage from them, to keep us essentially hooked up to their supply chains.
Well, the first thing we need to realize is that 15 years ago or so, when I started talking economic warfare in the Pentagon, they weren't interested in the defensive aspect and nature of it. They were only interested primarily in the weapon that could be waged. And so I had all these meetings, including in DARPA. They said, now, couldn't this be an offensive weapon? And my point to them was,
This is the
watch out.
Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. Yeah.
Yes, and my point to them was watch out. Our enemies have already planned the offensive weapons. This is our opportunity to prepare so that they cannot wage economic warfare against us. The intellectual property thefts, crashing stock markets, you name the different sanctions, the different types. They didn't seem interested in the defensive. Unfortunately, China and Russia absolutely were interested. They knew that America would at some point turn economic weaponry against them, and so the Russians very calculatingly prepared to defend the ruble if we went in a full-on assault, and they planned to protect their country from a cutoff of the international payment system by building their own payment system. They planned to develop contracts and agreements to protect their energy. The Chinese did as well. And the Chinese were aware that we could maybe sanction a big firm, but if they could get so inculcated into our supply chain that it became we could only cut them off if we were unwilling to build houses or to build computers or to manufacture medicines. And so they got their industries. Well, what we see as a marketplace, and we said, oh, they're the low cost supplier in Beijing. We should buy from them. They strategically placed industries that were critical and crucial to our economic continuance into our supply chains. And if we were to cut them off, we are essentially cutting ourselves off. And that was beautiful planning. They call it the Little Giants program. It's been written about recently. You sent me an article on it this morning. It's genius for their defensive protection against our economic warfare. And you can see, back to the Russian ruble example, the ruble has come all the way back to its pre-war levels before we started attacking it so sharply. The Chinese are so ingrained in our economy. It is going to take a warlike effort, a mobilization effort to remove the vulnerabilities of our economy from China.
Yeah, war footing, as they say, is what's needed, I think. And Kevin, one of the things that we've been partnering with you on in connection with our committee on the present danger China is trying at a bare minimum to stop the practice of having American financiers pouring the money that many of us give them, pension funds and 401k plans and mutual funds and exchange traded funds, among other things, to invest for us, pouring that money into the Chinese Communist Party, its front companies, even some working for the People's Liberation Army itself. Talk a little bit about some work that you've been doing that's an important part of what we call our Mad as Hell campaign at the Committee on the Present Danger China. And people can learn more about all of this at presentdangerchina.org. Tell us
Well, as
specifically about what you're doing on the training up of financial managers.
as is true with the little giants and how they've gotten into our economic system, they've gotten into Wall Street, and so every major index fund, pension fund, and so forth has Chinese exposure of one type or another. Can you imagine? It is December 8th, 1941, and in Congress, there's a debate. No, 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 we can't defend our homeland because, I've got a lot of Japanese companies in my portfolio. And Hitler's bad, but Daimler-Benz is really good. And I want to hold on to that because it's making me money. That is almost the situation we find ourselves in today. We are at war in a sense. It's an economic war. And people are arguing, well, we can't be tough on China because that might hurt my portfolio. Well, we had this campaign to get out of the thrift savings plan of the United States, this intention to put a huge percentage of money into the Chinese market where our servicemen and women, soldiers on the front lines, would be building and financing the weapons that might be aimed back at them. Well, the average American is now financing the economic weapons aimed back at them because they're investing so heavily in China. Wall Street is woke, and we are training financial advisors for clients who say, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. Like in that movie Network, screaming out the window, I want my money out of China. Well, the advisor doesn't know how to do it. So we're training financial advisors. Our training course is online at Liberty University. We've got a new training facility. You just saw it. You were here last weekend where we're going to be on ground training. We want to help financial advisors help their clients weaponize their money for the good of America, not for its destruction, for their future portfolios and not for their future slavery.
Yeah. Well, you've taught me so much about the kind of warfare that the Chinese are waging. Unfortunately, economic warfare is only one part of it. As you know, unrestricted warfare is a broader portfolio, if you will, of threats against our country. But what you're doing, Kevin, with this National Security Consultants Institute, I think is Investment Consultants Institute, is so critically important. And I hope people will check it out at your website, economicwarroom.com. Thank you for your leadership in all of these areas and for your contributions to this program. We'll look forward to talking with you again next week, Kevin Freeman. Well, thank you for joining us for this edition of Securing America. I hope, as always, that you feel better equipped to do just that. And for more information about how you can, please check out securingamerica.tv. Follow me at Frank Gaffney on all the platforms, and then go forth and multiply.